I told Sam I was going to make a good presentation about the data dictionary. Who in this room has ever been to a RESO meeting in this room? Raise your hands. So not very many. This is good, good. A couple of you, this is going to be kind of a little bit of a memory lane, but the first RESO meeting that I ever attended was in this room. This actually wasn't the meeting. This is some other meeting that, of the many thousands of meetings I have been in that room when I worked at NAR. But Mark Leswing, who was the Chief Technology Officer at the National Association of Realtors, asked me to come down and attend this meeting. And I had just started working at NAR, and I was working on social media of all things. And my background was in the mortgage industry. In the mortgage industry, there were quite a bit of standards already. This is in 2009. The mortgage industry sort of followed Fannie Mae's example and adopted all of the forms and the data standards that they had, and everyone just kind of ran with it. So it was really crazy to go into this room and listen to the voices. This is before RESO was its own organization. This was just when they were a work group working for NAR. And I go to this room, and it was just such a kind of a shock to me. So I was trying to think of a visualization for what it was like. And it was almost like three business people yelling at each other in different languages. And I thought ChatGPT did a pretty good job here. This is kind of, and I don't mean that people had their voice, they had raised their voices and were actually screaming at each other, but underneath, a lot of people had a lot of strong opinions about how this should go together. And you had varying MLS vendors who all had their opinions, and you had associations that had their opinions. You had worries about portals like Zillow. You had worries about NAR trying to make all the MLSs consolidate. And everyone in the room wanted a good outcome, but you could tell that there was just so much angst. And it was just a really surprising meeting to me. And I ended up attending all of those meetings while I was at NAR because I just thought it was one of the most fascinating things that NAR was doing. A lot of people are down on NAR right now. I can tell you that RESO and the data dictionary, they helped start that, and that's one of the best things that they've ever done. A few years later, I went to work for Trulia. Trulia, for you young kids in the room, used to be a portal, and they were acquired by Zillow. But at the time, they had kind of started their way by scraping data from broker websites. They didn't have feeds from MLSs. They didn't have anything to standardize. So they literally had a team of people that would normalize that data so that they could display it on their websites. And of course, this was not making the industry very happy at all. And so eventually they adopted broker feeds and tried to adopt MLS feeds. When I went to go search for an image, because there was all kinds of people who were mad at the time, so I figured there'd be a bunch of images up there. Now there is a bunch of, or not companies, but bloggers and like Scrape Hero here writing white papers on how to scrape Trulia. So I thought that was somewhat ironic. So I went back to ChatGPT, kind of found a good image here. But a lot of us that went to work at Trulia, we were trying to get Trulia to be aligned with the industry. They were not members of RESO yet, and RESO had by then spun off to be its own organization. It was really the development team and a few of us on the industry team that eventually convinced the leadership that they needed to be a part of this organization, and it would only benefit them. They were the ones taking in feeds from all over the nation, from different MLSs, from different brokers. Again, still trying to normalize all that data, and it would be so much simpler if we all worked towards this data dictionary where everyone is a standard. But it was really tough, and they didn't actually adopt it until after I left and shortly before they were acquired by Zillow. But then they became a really good partner. And it was very interesting to me that, sometimes as a developer, someone on, a project manager, you have to manage up. And so in your room right now, I think it's really important when you go back and report to your managers, the executives, about how this meeting went, really emphasize that how important it was that this is, right? Because they don't understand it. And it's very important to advocate for this. it will eventually help you. Not long after I left Trulia, I went back to the National Association of Realtors, and they asked me to start a data project. And at that time, Mark Leswing asked me to be one of the 2 representatives from NAR to work on the RESO board of directors. And man, that was really exciting to me. I felt like a really prestigious role. I took it really serious. And one of the things that I did is I decided I should join a work group and really, spend a good amount of my time contributing to this organization beyond just the fact that we were on the board. So the group that I knew the best was the Data Dictionary. So I joined the Data Dictionary, and I remember about 2 weeks in, or 2 meetings in, I'm sorry, and Rob's leading the call, and we were talking about bidets. You guys know what a bidet is, right? So we were talking about a bidet, and we were trying to determine whether or not the bidet should fit only in a primary bedroom or bathroom, or all of the bathrooms. And then we had, we split off and started having a little bit of a conversation about, well, do bidets only belong in bathrooms? Could we think of any examples of a bidet being in some other type of room? And 20 minutes into this conversation about bidets, I was like, man, I am not a geek. I'm like geek light. Like, this was really like a very serious conversation about bidets. But it was needed, right? But still, at the same time, I was trying to come up with a visualization of what that call and many of those calls were like for me. So as I create an image of someone's ears bleeding as they are listening to the world's most boring conference call, and that's how grueling this work is, and I think it's underappreciated. And so I asked ChatGPT to give me that image, and it came up with this. I think it wanted me to upgrade to the paid subscription. I don't know. Gave me nothing. Anyway. Yeah, so I served on that board for several years. I'm very proud of that work. I feel like I took my NAR hat off whenever I could and really tried to help advance the organization. When I entered my next phase, I worked for a company now called Styldod. They are a company out of Bangalore, India. They wanted to come to America and really dominate the real estate space here. They have 2 million people that have signed up for their service worldwide. And what they do is they use artificial intelligence to fix photos. And to do that, they have to extract a lot of data out of that photo so that they can understand what it is. And so when I get hired, they're showing me the back end of all the system. And basically the first thing, and I'm going to get to the data part here, the first thing that they do is you ask you to upload photos, right? So you upload your photos. And then it goes through, this is the most intensive process of the whole thing, is it goes through and tries to figure out everything there is to know about that room so that they can fix it. So it could be that it's cluttered, or it could be that it has terrible furniture in it, or it could be that the walls are painted purple and orange. But before it can do that, it has to understand the room itself. And so in this example, you can see that the couch is gone, and the chair is gone, and the rug is gone, all the furniture. And the drapes are gone, but the window's still there, and the window hasn't moved. And right now, it knows that that window is, 37 inches away from the corner, and it's 2 feet off of the ground and 8 inches from the ceiling. And it knows that because it's literally used machine learning to figure out from every other picture it's ever trained on that based on the proportions of the couch and the chairs and the tables and what those generally are, then it figures out that room so that it doesn't then change that room. But now it knows a lot about this room. And so it can then put new furniture, different furniture into the rooms if it needs to. So we do a lot of virtual staging. But in order to, like I said, in order to do that, it also needs to know how big is a bed, how big is some artwork. All of it is really focused on building that canvas at the very beginning. And to give you an example of how this works, we have an MLS product, and Dan and Katie are going to mention it in the next session after the break. But just, we have a subscriber project or a product, and you go to reimaginehome.ai. If you sign up, email me, tell me your email address, and I'll give you like 200 credits so that you can play with this. This is for the nerds, so you guys can play with it. But it's all chat-based. You see this room, you know, if you're a realtor, you would like to declutter that room, and that's what you would say. You would say, declutter this room, and there it goes. And if you wanted to add furniture, you type whatever you want. And I kind of put it to the test. So I asked my 5-year-old daughter how she would redecorate this room. And, you know, like, first thing she wanted was like a rainbow unicorn on the wall, and rainbow carpets, and very, very pink chairs, and a red leather couch. And she just said what she wanted, and I just typed what she said, and this is the result that we got from it. It's pretty fun. Like, I could have showed you some fancy staged photo, but this one was more fun to me. All of it, again, because they understood that that back area is a dining room, that this front area is, I'm sorry, the back area is a living room, the front area is a dining room, understood what chairs are, understood what the artwork on the walls were, replaced the fan, replaced the chandelier, made the table gold. She was very specific that she wanted a gold table. So basically, it's all text-based. It's all because we've converted this photo into a long story of text, right? And so it can then work with it. And since everything now is data, we can change lots of stuff, including we can apply business rules, right? So if the MLS has a business rule that you can't have a for sale sign in your photos that go up to the MLS, not only can we identify that photo, but just like we're replacing the couch, we can just get rid of the sign. So now you've basically eliminated the compliance problem before it even got to the MLS, because it just finds it, fixes it, takes 30 seconds, and now the photo is good to go. And all of that starts, again, with pulling in all of this data. Understanding what is a refrigerator, understanding what is a stainless steel refrigerator, understanding, you know, what kind of floors you have. We use 7 different AI models to pull all that data out. When I saw this in action, and this was in January, I was amazed. And I worked at NAR, worked for Reach. I've probably reviewed 500 prop tech companies worldwide, and I was super impressed with what this was doing. And ultimately, I think this is, you know, again, this giant data grab that comes from these pictures. So when we realized we had the compliance piece, we realized that we had all this data about the photos, we understood now that there was a amount of data that we could send back to an MLS, right, about all these photos. So for example, if you were to go in through our MLS tool, upload a bunch of photos, about 45 seconds later, it will have examined all 30 of your photos. It will tell you which photos look good. It will tell you which photos could possibly be improved. It will tell you which photos have a compliance issue that you can fix on the fly. But then it also identifies what each of these photos, what room they go in. That's the first set of data. So now, if you want to sort those photos by what room they are, that data is provided instead of the agent having to supply it or the photographer having to supply it. And then if you look, there's like a second tab that says Form Autofill. And when we go there, there's all these data fields, all the stuff that you would usually ask the agent to add. And a lot of times they get busy and they only add a few of these data fields. Or maybe they'll decide to add some more of their own, but it's going to pre-populate all these data fields out so that, all these data out so that it can be used within the MLS. And you know, we worked with CRMLS to do this, and so they gave us a lot of guidance. But I was still, when I first saw this, I was like, well, okay, but do you know what RESO is? Is this RESO certified? And I'm basing that on all of that experience I've had before, my own perceptions of the struggles of getting everyone to talk to each other. And my developer was like, I mean, yeah, like we joined RESO, we looked at the wiki, we adopted all of the different fields, and we made them native to our own. it was like the easiest part of their whole project. And I think that is the most impressive part. I was kind of shocked, right? If I were to tell you a story for 20 minutes about how they adopted it, it would only last 1 minute because it was very, very easy. So the whole premise of this is that I think most of us take the RESO data dictionary for granted. And even yesterday during the work group, Rob said to turn the lights up when he came up so that nobody fell asleep, right? It's grueling work. It's very boring work. But it's very, very important work. And even if you only contribute to that work group a little bit over your time in this industry, it's going to help advance everyone. And personally, someone like me that has been in the business just long enough to see it, we've come 1,000,000 miles in the last 10 years. It's really awesome to see how easy it is now. And if you weren't one of the people that raised your hand, maybe you've taken this for granted. So what I would encourage you to do is, if you have not participated in the RESO work group, get involved. Just try it, and hopefully you can handle it better than I could, because it was pretty grueling for me. But I think that it's very important, and it'll help you understand everything that you're doing in your business as well. I also think that you should go back to your employers, and if you're not already involved, explain to them why you should spend more of your time at work participating in some of these work groups. And then I'd also just like to ask, who in this room has ever worked on the RESO dictionary work group? You want to stand up? Or this is awesome. How about a round of applause for you guys? That's awesome. So that was it. I just had a good story. You know how the news always ends with the happy story after they talk about war and famine and all that. I just thought that was really exciting, and that's what I came out here to talk with you. And luckily, a break is next. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Again, after the break, Katie and Dan from RE Core are going to talk a little bit more about their product, which includes us. And let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much.